Okay, so you know, I'm gonna use Sebastian's here to there we go to get started in experience design. Oh, what did I do? I'm clicking around too much. Start a web. So I'm going to import maybe some of these, probably all of them actually. If you've done any work in Sketch, the import into XD is the exact same as it was before. Just click on the artboard, make it exportable, change your format to SVG, and then just hit export. Well, you can hit export, or if you want, you can just, you have a folder made. This is when multiple desktops are useful. I have too many folders. I can't read them because of the desktop I'm on. We'll call this Final Project SVGs. So you'll just get your SVGs over there. Click and drop it in there. Opens up. There's my home SVG. I can take my home SVG. I'll put it in XD. There it is. There's this weird line here, which we don't need. But here is, essentially here is my wireframe. If you want, you can make it, oh, that's gross. You could adjust your artboard to fit it. All right, super simple, super easy. But this is only if you've already done some work in XD. And it's just like before, okay? While you're doing, for this, yeah, sorry. As I was kind of playing around with this myself, I kind of realized that it's probably gonna be easier for you guys to have 3 separate XD files. So one that's your mini wireframes, one that's your wireframes, and one that's your prototype, your mockup and prototype, because there's no way to group the artboards. I thought there was. Like I made a bunch of artboards. I made a bunch of artboards and then tried to come over here and group them, and it won't group them. And there's no pages or any sort of function like that yet. So you don't want to end up with like, you're gonna have a lot of artboards and you don't want to have one file that has like 80 artboards in it. Okay, so it's easier if you just have 3 separate files that have all your artboards. You can duplicate the file. It's like your mini wireframes file. You could duplicate that to build your wireframes, and then duplicate your wireframes to then build your mockups. That way you don't have to worry about laying it out differently or anything like that, or trying to rebuild your layout by hand. Okay, what I kind of mean by that, or what I definitely mean by that, is I'm just going to use Sebastian's designs here so I don't have to do it myself real quick. So let me export a bunch of these. Let's do like all these here. SVG. I'm just going to find the file. All right, export. There, so here's all. What did I grab? Notes. Okay, that didn't really work the way I wanted it to. Yeah, it definitely didn't work the way I wanted it to. So maybe don't do that. I think it's going to be best to do the artboards. Just come, oh, I see what happened. Okay, so you can just grab all the artboards, make exportable, export artboards. Yeah, whatever. Save them somewhere. Let's save them as. Is it just gonna do the one? It just did the one. That's no fun. All right, never mind. You have to do them each individually if you've worked in XD or Sketch, I mean. So if you haven't, you're just building this in XD, then you should be fine. All right. Background color. I don't need background gonna do a couple and then I can move on. All right, should be enough for now. All right, so there's 3 for me. I'm gonna copy that artboard, come into it, delete the home, grab goods. Let's see. Oh, it deleted it, exported that as a PNG. I didn't change it. That's weird. Sorry, this whole process is, I'm making it up as I go, so. All right, SVG is what I want. There we go. Okay. So yes, you're just going to build artboards for it, for everything. And like I said before, like this is technically the mini wireframe section, but as you're, so you don't need to worry about like the size of the artboards. But it might behoove you to pay a little bit of attention to it at this stage, because it kind of struck me that it might be easier for you to do, since you, at the mini wireframe stage, since you are doing a lot of planning out of how the pages are connected and everything at this point, you might want to go ahead and build all your connections and just do it now. And that way, when you go to your wireframe and your mock-up portions or the phases of the project, all you're worrying about then is design. All of your, as long as you have kind of these, a few placeholder things to build your connections off of your links, then your flow is more or less going to be the same. Your flow shouldn't change between pages. Does that make sense? I'll show you what I mean. Center it. Always center things. Why are you way off over there? Oh, there's like some weird line. Okay. Just making sure things are centered. Okay. So now I got a bunch of the, say I'm done here or whatever. I'm not, but say I am. And then I go to my prototype. These are just my mini wireframes, but I can go at the mini wireframe point, I can go and link these connections. I can say, oh, okay, that one needs to go there. Maybe, this one can go in here. And this is where, like, if you have a couple of placeholder things in your mini wireframes, it lets you build to other links, other places, other artboards. If you're doing a bunch of your work now, you can just get it over with at this point, and you don't have to worry about the design at all. And it doesn't have to be like, these are really, really. I'm still sorry. I'm kind of playing around here. There's more in his design than what you absolutely have to have. Like you could just have, a rectangle. You could just have a rectangle in here, or a couple of rectangles, just something to build a link off of. Because when you go to prototype mode, you need to have that object in order to be able to link it to something. Okay. Does that kind of make sense? What I'm talking about here? Okay. Like this one, this specific element. The more elements you have, the better. I'm just trying to, this method I'm just thinking about in terms of workflow. It may be easier for you to build those connections and pay attention to how the pages are connected before you've got a lot of elements on there. But it might not. Maybe you think better when there's lots of content on there already. If you'd rather just lay it out roughly and then worry about how the connections work once you've got at least a wireframe on there. I'm just trying to like come up with different alternative ways for you guys to attack the project, to work on it. Okay. Are there any questions so far? No? Okay. All right, so your mini wireframes. Again, the mini wireframe section, this is a lot more than what you absolutely have to have. I don't even know. What is that pasteboard? What is that? I don't know what this pasteboard is. Might be the background. I would label these. Don't leave them, give them their names that they should have. Like this one is home, about. You can, you're doing, let's grab one of these. You could just do empty ones if you want, or maybe you could come up with a system of symbols, like simple shapes. Like, a square is a certain kind of page, a circle is another kind of page, a triangle is a third kind of page. Think about how many pages you have. Write notes down first, like on a piece of paper or somewhere easy for you to write notes down, if to kind of like plan out what your site is going to have. Don't underestimate the research phase, the research portion of this assignment. Okay, decide what kind of site you want to make. You can use those 4 different ones that we did on the last project, or you can pick your own. All right, you can go specifically e-commerce, so like something like Amazon, or specialty like H&M, or you could go service, like an exterminators page, or you could go organization, but then there's lots of different kinds of organizations. There's government pages. Like you could, if you really, really wanted a template to work off of, you could go with the government standards, right? The federal web design standards. Oops. There we go. You could go off of this, like getting started, look at what they say about designers. They've got a ton of resources. A lot of these are already, a lot of their UE components, they have a bunch of that stuff already. You see how simple and just bare bones this looks, with still giving a good idea of what it's going to look like. I mean, this is more or less what you need to do. It's like they talk about the typography they want, the different pairings, the different grid systems to use. If you don't want to think, use the standard. Okay, if you want to just make something and go with it, by all means, you can use the standard. That's what it's there for. All right, but this would be an organization site. Otherwise, Pinterest is always a good place to look for stuff. Although web design stuff on Pinterest always looks the same. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but okay. All right, try to stretch yourselves. The biggest things to think about, as always, spacing and alignment. Those are the things I will nitpick to death. All right. If your spacing is off and your alignments are off, it's gonna bug the hell out of me, and I'm gonna see it right away, and it'll really affect your grade. Okay. You can make something look really boring, but have really good spacing and alignment, and it will be satisfying, and people will like it. All right. You can have something look really crazy and dynamic and cool, but if your spacing and alignment is off, it's going to look terrible. It's going to feel terrible. Okay? Is this just crickets? I just hear crickets. So actually, I hear crickets. Computer fans, but that's the equivalent of crickets for this class. Everyone's okay with this? Yeah? Okay. All right. Any questions before we get started? No? None? Zero? Okay, I want you working in XD, por favor, please. Just because of that prototype portion of it.